Welcome to the Blood Moon Archives, home to real-life encounters of things that go bump in the night. These aren't just stories. These are true horrors that will haunt you long after the screen fades to black. So lock your doors, close the curtains, and keep those lights on. Let's get into it. Second dinner. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember that clearly, because it was the first evening in a while that I didn't feel totally wiped after work. I'd had a long week already, and it was only halfway through, so I decided to treat myself to an easy dinner. One of those pre-made chicken meals from the grocery store. Nothing fancy. Chicken breast, green beans, a little mashed potato. Heat it up, eat, wash one plate. Simple. I don't really cook anymore. Not since the divorce. It's just me in the house now, so I mostly eat in silence with the TV on low, or sometimes not at all. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and actually ate without any distractions. It felt kind of nice. Familiar almost. The food was fine, warm enough, a little bland, but I didn't mind. After I finished, I rinsed the plate and left it in the sink, figuring I'd wash it later. I wiped down the counter, tossed the food container in the bin, and was just about to head upstairs when I heard it. The microwave beeped. That sharp, quick, triple beep it makes when something's done heating. It came from behind me. The kind of sound you recognize immediately, even when you're not thinking about it. I froze for a second. My first thought was maybe I'd accidentally started it somehow. Maybe I leaned against it while wiping the counter and didn't notice. That happens, right? But when I turned around, the light inside was on. The timer said 0000, and the door was closed. I hadn't used the microwave at all that night. I stood there for a second, confused, not scared, not yet. Just unsure. I opened the door, and that's when my stomach dropped. Inside was a plate. My plate. The exact meal I had just eaten. Same type of chicken breast, same side of mashed potatoes and green beans. Still warm. I could see steam curling off the edge of the plate, like it had just finished heating. Same portion, too. Right down to the little uneven scoop of potatoes and the bite-sized piece of chicken I'd cut off first. I remember that detail because I always eat in the same way. Potatoes first, then the veg, then the meat. That little cut of chicken was how I started. And now, somehow, it was sitting in the microwave like it hadn't been touched yet. It was the same plate, too. One of those off-white ceramic ones with a little chip on the rim. The one I'd used earlier. I looked over at the sink, just to be sure. And there it was. The plate I'd used. Rinsed. Still wet. Sitting right where I left it. So unless I'd gone completely out of my mind, I was looking at two identical plates. One in the sink, and one somehow now inside the microwave, freshly heated. I didn't move for a while, just stood there staring at it like the longer I looked, the more sense it would make. It didn't. There was no noise, no other signs of anything unusual, no flickering lights, no cold spots, just the sound of the fridge humming and the faint ticking of the clock above the stove. Everything was still, completely normal, except for this plate of food that should not have existed. Eventually, I reached in and touched it. The edge was hot, like it had been in there for a few minutes. I slid the plate out slowly, checked the bottom. It was mine. I could see the faint marker line where I'd drawn a little dot years ago to tell my plates apart from a roommate's back in college. Same dot, same plate, same dinner. I set it down on the counter and stepped back. I kept thinking, maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I don't remember putting a second one in. Maybe I made two and forgot. But I live alone. I always make one. I'd thrown out the container. There was no extra food in the fridge. No open packages. Nothing else on the counter. I didn't eat it, obviously. I didn't throw it out either. I couldn't bring myself to touch it again after I'd set it down. It sat on the counter the rest of the night, cooling. I half expected it to disappear when I turned my back, but it didn't. The next morning, it was still there. Cold now, unchanged. I took a photo of it with my phone. I don't even know why. Maybe just to prove to myself that it was real. I ended up wrapping it in plastic and putting it in the fridge. That was 3 weeks ago. It's still there. I haven't touched it since. Nothing else has happened. No more weird beeps, no ghostly leftovers appearing out of nowhere. I've used the microwave a few times since, cautiously. It works like normal, but every time I press start, I half expect something strange to happen. I haven't told anyone. What would I say? Hey, dinner repeated itself. It sounds dumb, but I think about it every day. Especially because that plate, that exact plate, is still sitting in the sink cabinet. Which means the one in the fridge has no reason to exist. Same food, same bite mark, same chip in the rim. I check the fridge sometimes, just to make sure it hasn't changed. It hasn't. But I did notice something this morning that made me stop cold. When I opened the fridge to grab the milk, I swear, for half a second, the plastic wrap on the plate looked like it had been peeled back just a little. Not much. Just enough that it wasn't sealed the way I left it, and I know I didn't touch it. I closed the fridge and stood there for a long time. Now I'm just waiting to see what happens next. Well, you've heard the truth. But remember, not every story ends when the video does. Some stories follow you home, into the dark corners of your mind. If you've made it this far, you might just be brave enough to face what's next. If you want to hear more of these terrifying tales, and perhaps awaken something, you shouldn't. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You'll want to know when the next nightmare arrives. But be careful. Once you step into the darkness, it's not always easy to find your way out.